Call the meeting to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Krasinski. Neely.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Conlon. Parch.
Here.
Peddle.
Here. We do have a quorum. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to participate at this point? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 27th meeting?
I'll move. Second. It beat me.
Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'd like to take an item out of order here. I'd like to talk about the pension funding illustrations review, since I was the one who had requested this. The document here is not a policy document. What I wanted to be able to show is even if you were to eliminate the pension obligations that would be related to current and future staffing, that, in other words, if you were to eliminate the police and the fire department, that you would still have a substantial ongoing pension liability. And in fact, according to these estimates or illustrations from our actuary, police and fire only, it would still take 23 years to retire the liability. And there is a reason why the unfunded actuarial liability is smaller in these particular cases than it would be if you had no additional future obligations, and that is because baked into the actuarial calculations is what the probability is that somebody makes it to retirement. What is the probability that somebody qualifies for a pension? Okay, and so if you stopped now, the people that are in the system, there would be a group of them that would never qualify for a pension, and that's why your ongoing liability would be less, even though it's related to past work. In addition to that, remember that, what did you say, 1.5 million roughly of additional pension expenses on top of the police and the fire department. So for me, the only takeaway here is that you do save some money in terms of present values. Nobody's suggesting that this is what we want to do. The reason that I'd asked for this was to show that you still have a multi-million-dollar obligation that would continue out 23 years. So this isn't just, it's not a function in any way, shape, or form of the fact that is related to current staffing. This is an issue that we have a accumulated liability that's going to need to be paid off even if you somehow didn't have any future obligations calculated. So we've got a big job ahead of us, and I think that this just shows that we've got to take our obligation to these police and fire pensions very, very seriously, that you're still going to have to make a substantial contribution. And you can see that if you take and you look at the total contributions that are being made, the savings is but a small proportion. I mean, it's at the best, at the last few years where you've paid off your past obligation, yeah, okay. But
Yeah.
we've got that 23 years out there anyway. 23 years is to 2040 anyway. So that was the point here. Nothing more than having a number that showed we still have a substantial liability.
Well, it was informative, and it gives you a perspective, because I looked at, the smaller version in the packet, so I appreciate us getting this information, because I just think it puts it in a bigger picture, so we lose sight sometimes of, what we're,
We lose
But it
sight of what dependence we have on past decisions.
yes,
or
that's what I
if-
mean.
So, okay.
It's like
Any-
85%, 88%, so yes,
It's substantial.
it's the bulk of it.
Any other questions or comments? Steve, Glenn?
No, other than I'm going to just go ahead and say that I probably won't be on this committee when we pay this off in 23 years.
I thought of it, I didn't.
Boy, I
didn't
tell
say
you.
it.
Yeah. Well, we had a pension seminar that was done for our students on Friday. And the professor who did it from University at Albany, now be at Brigham Young, pointed out that the way that most municipal pensions are being funded, after 40 years, you're further from retiring them than you are today because of the assumptions that people are willing to make. And basically what it was is they take 30 years as the amortization, and then the next year they use 30 years as the amortization, and then the next year they use 30 years as the amortization. And so you keep literally kicking the can down the road. So, I hope this is convincing in the sense that we got to do something about this. We can't continue, as a community, we can't continue to kick this down the road, because even if you're not incurring new liabilities, you've still got a substantial amount of dollars
And it's not like
that are
we're
heavy.
the only community in this
No,
situation.
that's correct. But we know also as a community that it can be done in the sense that IMRF is about the best funded pension system in the state right now. I mean, of the public pension systems. So that can be done. We're not dependent on our actuaries for that. We pay what we're told to pay, and that's why they're, at the funding level that they need to be, so. And also, I think it's important for us in transparency and in reporting. Now, this is, it's a double-edged sword, but I think it's very important for police and fire pensions especially to keep noting what the contribution rate of employees are for police and fire, because they're much higher than most people realize that people are, that our current employees are contributing toward their pensions. Like, what are you guys at now? Do you know?
It's 9, I think it's 9.544, 0.455.
And the police are a little bit higher than that. So, 10%, 10 to 11% it's been, which is a pretty substantial contribution toward these pension obligations on the part of the employees. So. Anything else on this? Okay, then let's move back to the financial policy review and recommendations. Let me pull these up, I'm sorry. Yes.
Did you want Cynthia to comment on the last item?
Yeah,
before we move on?
the public comment.
Well, we did
Yes,
do
do
that.
that,
Do you guys want to comment on?
I don't think so. I mean, there's been a lot of push from Springfield to combining these council fire pensions into one, like what happened with the teachers' fund.
And they were talking about with IMRF too, weren't
And,
they?
yeah, and, you know, we obviously like to keep local control and manage our funds here. And I think that has served us well, but there are a lot of communities that are not doing nearly the funding that we need.
And ours could be a heck of a lot
That's
better.
their answer. Communities like Harvey and a few downstate communities are barely funding their pension funds. So I think that's what some people think is the answer, but we would disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, the only, just to ask, the only advantage I could see to that is not a financial one. It's one in terms of recruiting. If you had absolutely unfettered ability to move from community to community, that I think could work toward the employee and the department's sake. But if you think you're going to finance or get rid of the financial problems in the pensions, combining them is, in my experience, not going to be the way that you're gonna be able to do that, so, okay. Any other? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so when you're looking at your actuarial numbers for the fire department, are we considering the tier 2 employees that we currently have? Is that a consideration with the obligations?
Yeah, so that's all taken into account. Our existing kind of makeup of your departments is what the actuaries were working off of. The one thing that's different than going forward is Foster and Foster use the 7.5% investment rate of return only because we haven't had a full year at the 7% that we just went to. So to kind of do the future projections, she did use a higher interest rate of return, which was noted in the report. So it might bring the overall obligation down a little bit, but it's not going to take away from kind of what you're seeing in these illustrations.
Well, the 7% would increase the
Right.
obligation.
Yeah.
It would increase the obligation. Because if you're assuming a lower
Right.
interest rate of return, then, now, it might change the spread.
Right.
But it might change the
I was
spread a
thinking
little
at the
bit.
beginning it would
Yeah, yeah,
versus it. So.
okay. All right. Okay, let's move on then to the item number 5. And I believe that there was another policy put before us. Was it just one?
It's just one.
Okay. Okay, that's the minutes, excuse me. It was the investment policy.
It's page, I think, 16 of the packet.
Yeah, it's on page 17.
Okay, just to follow the parliamentary procedure, do I have a motion to approve the policy? And then we'll have a discussion.
Yeah.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so, moved by Neely, seconded by Parch. Okay, now let's discuss the changes. The changes are to eliminate the, some of the reporting requirements. I had a couple of questions about this. So, with respect to this investment policy, to what does the investment policy apply? Does it apply to the pension systems? Does it apply to?
No, to the pension system? No, this is the investment policy for the city, not the pension
Okay,
system.
and so what are the accounts in which we would be utilizing these?
So it'd be for all our funds, we invest certain portions of essentially the fund balance in the different funds. So general fund and water fund are
And who do we invest them with?
Right now, we have it in various banks. Bob, our assistant finance director, has been trying to consolidate it into kind of a more manageable central location. So we've been closing a lot of certificates of deposit in different banks. Because at the time, so what happened in finance is we used to have a senior accountant. And then that position was no longer in the department, so now we only have an accountant, we don't have the senior accountant position anymore. And so the duties from the senior accountant have been kind of shifted between the assistant finance director and the accountant. And we've been trying to, workload-wise, balance that. And so when we had one person who was more dedicated to doing the investing, looking at different banks and finding, spent a lot more time on trying to get us the best and the greatest amounts that they could. Well, now that we're essentially using the assistant finance director to manage our investments, it's been difficult to allocate enough time. So we've been trying to consolidate them and bring them in a little bit more, but also some of the reporting requirements, essentially the 2 bullets that I've kind of stricken from the policy, we just haven't done in the department since the senior accountant position was gone. So these are essentially a workload question for the department more so than the policy, but there are still benchmarks within the policy. It's just we're not then including them on a report every time.
My, I feel like I'm operating from a point of less information than I should have, some of which I'm culpable for. I mean, by not having looked more carefully.
Can I just,
Yeah, please.
on the 3rd bullet point, the percentage of the total portfolio, this is basically somebody managing the portfolio. We'll call it
What
that.
page you on, Ron?
I'm on page 16, on those 5 bullet points with the last 2 stricken. So when I read this, I understand what was happening before is we had a monthly reporting of to-date yields for each individual security and the yield to date maturity. And so as I read through all this and having just met with a financial advisor for my business and home, I get this, and it's like, I can't imagine that you're basically asking somebody to take over being a finance manager, and I don't know how beneficial it is that we're getting monthly inception to date yields, in other words, from January 1, 2011 to July 1, 2000, you know what I'm saying, and then to August 1. I think that's what we're discussing here, isn't it? So my question is, will there still be a yearly or an annual, and I went through this, but now, as Mike's talked about that, I forgot to look, is there an annual inception to date yield? So in other words, at the end of the year, was the financial report, that would include all that, wouldn't it?
We could change the,
I mean, like how
Well,
that's doing.
something got lost here
Because I
in the
think that is
translation.
probably unwieldy, asking you all to do that monthly. I mean, you'd need,
Yeah,
as we know.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm confused here. All right, so on page,
It's page 2 of the, I'm sorry.
yeah,
it's
with page
2 of the-
16,
of the
there's one
policy
thing.
Of this, and it's page
And then what
16
what
of our
is,
packet.
okay. Oh, all right, so up front is just a summary, and then the investment policy.
Right,
Okay,
right.
now, here's where I'm getting lost. Oh, I see, okay. I must be losing something here, okay? I honestly don't understand why this is so difficult. I mean, we had, I was in an investment club, and we did this every 2 weeks for individual market securities. And I don't understand why it would not be possible to make this so that it's entering a single number in an Excel spreadsheet that just produces the result.
It just hasn't been distributed from the position we lost to another workload. So.
But if this is an hour's worth of work, okay, I can, if you're actively managing the portfolio, if you're looking at it for investments on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, then you need to be looking at the returns on an equally consistent basis. Here, it's an issue of transparency. I can see, for example, if we're looking on page 21, okay, all right, the percentage of the total portfolio which each type of investment represents, that should be fairly straightforward. And even if it's lagged, you're gonna have a report. Okay. Now, depending on what it is, that report may be monthly, it may be quarterly. Okay. Inception to date yields for each individual security, well, that's gonna be at a particular date. You already know what your purchase price was. And so it's a matter of just filling in what the current rate is, and then plugging it into a formula, which is already in Excel, to get the inception to date yield, you would think. Now, I may not be understanding this right. Now, the average weighted inception to date yield to maturity of the entire portfolio as compared to applicable benchmarks, monthly may be too often on that. Maybe that's quarterly.
Okay.
Well, the inception to date, what you brought up, I don't know what the investments are, I haven't seen a spreadsheet
Nor
or
have I.
anything.
That's why I was saying I was culpable.
But if I assume there's some that may have been purchased, how many years ago? I mean, what is,
Do you know what our latest was, Bob, our oldest?
Longest one? I think it says in here we can't go past 3 years.
I think it's 3 to
Yeah.
7 years. They
Yeah,
shoot
that's-
for
well, just,
3.
I guess what value is the,
My question is, yeah, what are we doing with that every month? And if we have them do that, who's
The-
looking at that and what are we doing?
the
with it?
yields from inception to date, some from
Really?
3 years
What's the
ago?
benchmark to say, okay, we're fine with it, or okay, we need to dump it?
It's not like we got a cash management
You
department.
don't get
where
into,
you're
you don't
running
get into
securities and
investments.
stuff, you
They
know.
tell you it's the long haul, not the, you know what I mean? It's like, and some of these are very conservatively based, and it's not like it's high risk. I'm just curious, who's doing this number? We throw it for an hour. Is that really just an hour's worth of work, or is it actually much more than that? Because we don't really know.
I wanna know how we're getting 7%. That's what,
We aren't.
I mean,
Oh,
We
for
are-
the pensions, yeah, this doesn't apply for the pensions, they have different
This is
funding
their-
mechanism, and both pension funds have a professional.
Right. And that
financial manager,
that manager's
and they
gonna
target-
present, be able to prepare this at
So
any point in time.
realistically, this report goes to city council once a month, the investment report. It's on the consent agenda usually, so you can go see it if you want. You know, if we keep these in or take it out, I'm okay either way. It was just more of a workload for the finance department. And honestly, once we start kind of getting through this budget cycle, I would like to go out and see about having financial advisors that would do this. And then for them, those 2 items, to add them onto a report,
Correct.
I don't think would take as much time. For us, it's just a matter of
Yes.
readjusting within our department.
But who is currently managing the portfolio?
Right now, it's really Bob. our
Okay.
assistant finance director.
All right,
But
fair enough.
There really is no managing the portfolio. Basically, what we're doing, we're not buying anything right now. Basically, we're doing a lot of selling and consolidating in hopes to then go to an advisor and go from there. So we aren't really managing what you're saying, like going out and looking for returns and investing and all that.
Now, Bob, do you, we're talking to Bob Miller, right?
Yep.
Bob Miller, Assistant
Finance.
Finance Director. Okay, I just want to be clear to the audience. Okay, so in terms of the decisions that you make, whether they're consolidation or they're to maybe move the money someplace else, okay? Is that a finance department responsibility, or is that something that always goes through the city council?
It's been finance department.
Okay, all right. So the decision to go with an investment advisor
That
would probably rise to the level of
Oh, yes.
going to the city council?
Oh, yes. Yep.
Okay, all right. Well,
May I ask a question?
sure.
Are these investments you're talking about primarily CDs, or what are they? Are they highly volatile, or are they something, once they're purchased, they're gonna be stable?
they're more stable in
That's
nature.
what I
I know we
thought.
have a lot of CDs.
Yeah.
That's.
The majority,
most of our
right?
Investments are all CDs, yep.
Well, this isn't something that's going to be highly volatile then, no. So,
Yeah.
No,
that sounds like a
comments
whole
in
lot of
here.
time put in for not
Yeah.
very
I
much
read in here, it said the
return.
rate on
Yeah.
investment is of
Yeah.
least importance compared to the
Right,
safety
there you go.
and liquidity objectives described above, which
Yep.
makes perfect sense. Again, we're talking very conservative, and it's not like, I would agree if these were very high risk, high,
Right.
but
But this
maybe
isn't
quarterly, I
necessary.
just don't know who's looking at this stuff
Yeah.
monthly. I know
Yeah.
city
Well-
council's not, and I know we're not, maybe we should be, I don't know, but.
And I think that's the best point here. I mean, given Mr. Miller's answers, hey, if the city council is comfortable with this, I mean, this stuff isn't being reported to us. There's no active management by elected officials. This is pretty passively managed. The biggest thing is to make sure that your cash management and cash inventory are such that you don't have idle cash sitting around, not making money, so I'm,
Which is why they're
yeah.
putting it in CDs and other safe
Bob?
stuff, yeah.
So currently, the one thing we do make sure, obviously, our local banks don't have a lot of interest or a good interest rate, but the Illinois funds currently is at about 1.5% interest, so a lot of our money is downstate at the Illinois funds.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion?
It's fine with me to
Yeah,
start.
I think it's fine.
I do too, I agree.
Just had to clarify. Okay. All right, clerk, call the roll.
Terzinski, Neely,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes,
Conlon, Parch,
Yes.
Petal.
Yes.
4 yes.
Okay. And I think, is there any new business?
Oh, no, that was all we had on the agenda.
Nope.
That's all we had on?
Short agenda, yeah.
At this point, I saw that we did have an additional audience member join us. Do you wish to make any comment tonight? Yeah.
You.
We want to give you an opportunity to participate if you had anything to say.
I hope that you continue working on the budget. There's a lot to be done. And I'm hoping that you'll be doing that as close to line item by line item. Molly and the council had a nice discussion about that the other day as possible. There's a ton to be done. And I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. Next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 24th, 5 PM.
It's on my calendar.
At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'm not ready to go.
Oh,
So
We're having a
moved.
meeting this short.
second.
Non-debatable, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you.